So I thought, whoever can catch it later anyway. But I thought, just going through, I see loads of people struggling. Any tips for collies chasing cars? So this is just going to be those first few nights when you bring your puppy home, or if you're struggling, and talking through really what I do. It's not to say that it's the only routine to have and the only way to do it. But if I talk through a little bit about how we do it in our house, then hopefully that you can relate to that and adjust it and make it work for you, because I do see lots of you struggling. And normally the underlying issue, let's say, is similar. So in my house, we have 2 full-time dogs, Socks here, who is 3, and another dog. But we do take on friends' dogs come and stay, or we foster dogs. So we've had quite a few different dogs through the doors, and they're all different ages, different breeds, different backgrounds, from being what might be considered bolshy, with no boundaries or, you know, no training, to being very, very traumatised. So we've had a whole scale of dogs through our doors. But the fundamental routine that we kind of stick to is the same. There's a bit of flexibility in it, of course, because every dog's different and every situation's different. But the core of it is kind of the same. So I thought if we chat about that, you can hopefully adapt that for your lifestyle if you need to, and if you're struggling, or if you're watching this and you haven't got your puppy, then let me know actually if there's anybody that hasn't got a puppy yet in the comments, because I can just start to see comments coming up. Hi Jill. So yeah, let me know if you haven't got your puppy, because this is good to know really before, because issues and getting that sleeping habit wrong to start with, you've then got to sort of backtrack and then get it right. So it's a lot easier if you can sort of know what you're doing and have a plan that's flexible, but have a plan to start with and get it right. It's, you know, you're going to breeze it a lot easier. Hey Donna. So yeah, let me know if I talk too fast, because it's ages since I've done a live and I get a little bit nervous about them, so I'm like rambling. But right, so you'll notice Donna types in a different language to everybody else. So yeah, Donna, you need to type it without your fat fingers so I know what you're saying. So yeah, so as I said, we've had loads of different dogs through, and the routine is similar. So we start, the dog comes into the house, we keep them separate as best we can from our existing dogs. Most of the time we might let a small introduction, but we don't allow them unsupervised access to each other, because there's no bond. We don't know how they're going to react and how the dynamic's going to be, so they're always going to be supervised if they're together, and that's the case for a good few days, and until my elder dog has accepted. Soxy will just accept everyone, he's fine. The other dog needs a few days. Once he loves the new dog, fine, not a problem, but until that time we're going to always supervise them. Because it's, as much as I'm pretty sure everything would always be fine, because of the nature, I would prefer to be more careful than to get it wrong and sort of think, oh, I should have been more careful. So what we do when it comes to night time, I will take Socks and our other dog upstairs. They come to bed with me. My husband will sleep downstairs on the sofa with the new dog. Every time. Doesn't matter if it's a homestay dog, a foster dog, a puppy, whoever. He will always stay downstairs. I'm getting a puppy soon. Yeah, you see, that was English, Donna. So he will always sleep downstairs with the new puppy, or new dog. Not in a crate. So there will be a crate available for the new dog, so that if they feel the need to want to go and shelter away with something over them, then they absolutely can. That's available to them. There is an open crate there for them to use that's lovely and comfy and whatever. But we don't lock them in. They're not locked in the first night. That door is not shut. My husband will sleep with them on the sofa. They normally, even though they've got access to a crate, they want comfort. And even the timid what might be classed as shut down, and we've had one in particular that would be classed as shut down. They, as much as they don't want necessarily to be close and they haven't got that trust, they don't want to be totally on their own, and they are social animals. And so to have that bond and connection by my husband staying downstairs with them, they need it. Even if they're not ready to, you know, curl up on the sofa with him, to have access to him, that it's not denied from them, is really, really important. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments here. Existing dogs are much bigger, so separate. Yeah. Donna's husband stays. Yeah, the husbands do. I never do. He does suggest that sometimes it could be my turn, but I just, we don't do that. It's always his turn. My dogs love it because it means normally my dogs do sleep downstairs most of the time, but it means they get to come up on the bed. So yeah, so the new dog's got access to him. We don't know what their toilet habits are when they come. They're not always toilet trained. So it means that he's there, they can take them out into the garden if there's a problem. You know what I mean? If they need the loo, it's not really a problem, is it? If they need the loo, or he's there. We don't know what they're going to be like with the furniture, etc., etc. He's there on hand for all of those things. But ultimately, he's there on hand for the dog to feel secure, and for him and that dog to form an attachment bond. Whenever we get a new dog through, it's always him that they go to first. They love him first because that's how we work it, that he has an attachment bond. And actually, if we've got a really scaredy dog, I pretty much have nothing to do with them for the first few days. I just carry on normal life and don't try and put too much on them. I kind of generally pretty much ignore them. Ignore's the wrong word, but you know, I get on with my life, and you know, I don't put any pressure on them at all. They can come to me when they're ready. So that's the first night of what happens, and probably the next night. As that attachment bond and the dog is starting to sleep through the night, then we might start to introduce a crate in the same room and see if they will take to a crate at night. Now, in the daytime, we will be doing little bits of crate training. We're not just sticking them in a crate and hoping for the best. We're outside of nighttime. We're also going to be backing that up with crate training. We're going to be doing Kongs. We might be doing scatter feeding in there. We might be doing snuffle mats in there. We might just be hanging out really with them in the crate. We might sit outside and just sort of read a book now and again, this, that and the other. All those things would depend on the dog. But what we are going to do, we would see if they would be happy to sleep in a crate. If they're not and they're not ready, absolutely fine, they don't have to. We're not ever shutting them in. They're never left to cry. They're never even getting a chance to cry in there. We're predicting that no, they're not going to settle in there, even if he's in the same room and they need an extra day or so. So that's fine, that's what we're going to give them. If we were just to put them in a crate, if we were just to put them in a crate and hope for the best, they might cry for a bit and then be quiet, but they're not going to feel any better. They're not going to be crate trained. They're just going to learn that actually my husband, who had spent a little bit of time creating that bond with them, actually wasn't listening to their needs, wasn't able to communicate. And we don't want that. We want them to actually think and believe and feel that we are listening to them, we are communicating with them. So we don't want to risk that by leaving them to cry in a crate. And in my experience, it's not going to crate train particularly. And it can lead to issues further down the road. So then after that, we might spend a couple of days with that. Then we're going to see, normally then my dogs will have accepted them. I'd feel happier with them being in rooms together without so much supervision. Then we would try and leave them for a little bit of time. So either the new dog would be in a crate or my dogs would be in a different room. And we would leave the new dog for, my husband might go to bed really, really late and I might get up really, really early. So that gap of where they're on their own is really short. We're not both going to bed at the same time for 8 hours and expecting the dog to suddenly be okay with that. We're adjusting our routines to fit around the dog. I'm saying a lot of M's, so I do apologise, guys. I think my mouth is going quicker than my brain. So we're not going from having somebody there to not having somebody there. It's a gradual process that's probably got an hour or two in the middle, and then that gets extended. And what we're looking for is for the dog to develop a habit of sleeping. We want them to get used to sleeping through the night, that's the routine. At a certain time, we kind of all get drowsy and we go to sleep, and we do that until the morning. We get them into that, like us with a body clock. So if I have a few late nights, then I struggle the night number 3 or 4 to go to bed early because my body clock's been reset. So I don't know scientifically. There might be somebody that knows scientifically, but I don't. But I figure that dogs are pretty much the same. We need to develop them a sleep habit rather than really being concerned about where that sleep is. We can adjust the place of that sleep and move it around from room to room to crate, not crate, open crate, closed crate, blah, blah, blah. But we need to have them just getting used to sleeping through the night in a new place that's scary, because it's different. It's not scary necessarily because the place is scary. It's just scary because it's different to what they know. So that's what we do. If you can adapt that to your puppies and have them be with you, stay with you for a few nights first, then let them start to develop a little bit more independence in the day, and then you can gradually move them away, move them into different locations. Does that make sense? Donna, you'll have to tell me if that makes sense or not. It is hard, and it's something that I see loads of you struggling with, but this is how we do it in my house. The timescales might differ, but generally it's how we do it in my house. Now, we've never had a sleep issue, not with any puppies, foster dogs, friends' dogs, anything. We've not had one single dog with a sleep issue doing it this way. But I've seen lots of people doing it the other way that have had crying. I've had separation issues further down the road, because it doesn't necessarily manifest at the time fully. But if we can put it into kids' terms, so my husband said earlier to me, he said it's a bit like if somebody went and took an infant from their house, from their family, plonked them into a strange house, and then told them they couldn't leave that room, no matter what they cried. Eventually, the child would shut up. Eventually, the child would stop crying. But the child's not going to feel any better. It's not going to feel happy about being isolated from